Welcome back to What the Flick Reviews. Daredevil, Season 2 with Alonso, Bibbs, Francis, myself, Kim. Meredith is out. She is sick. But we are going to talk about the finale.
Get well soon, Meredith.
She will. A cold day in Hell's Kitchen, and maybe our wrap-up of the entire season as a whole.
These people say Hell's Kitchen more than anyone in New York City ever has or will, I think.
Well, if your entire life revolved around a metaphor, you would too.
I mean, no, but it's not even just Daredevil.
I'm the devil
the lawyers,
of hell.
everybody's always bringing, like as though Hell's Kitchen were this thing unto itself that was like a domed city or something.
There's this sense of, one of the things I do like about Daredevil is there is this sense of pride in your location.
Yeah.
You know, New York, I've been to New York City. I've interacted with a lot of New Yorkers. There is that sense of pride. But in the Marvel Universe also in particular, New York is the hub of everything.
That's
it's
where all the action's going.
Everything goes on all the time. Like just down this, like you can walk from the Four Freedoms Plaza to Doctor Strange's office to Nelson Murdoch, attorney at law. Like it's all congested in there. And there's a lot of focus and a lot of love and a lot of faith, and we see that more in Daredevil than anything else because every other aspect of the Marvel Universe we've seen so far has been very spread out.
Yeah.
Here, everything feels very, very tightly knit. And between this and Jessica Jones and now Luke Cage, everything is right here in Hell's Kitchen, and I would give it a cool name too.
Yeah, but exactly what Alonso said is like it made it seem like this individual entity. And then when I was in New York recently last week, I was joking with my girlfriend. I was like, "This is where Daredevil's based," and after like 6 streets or avenues, I was at a Hell's Kitchen, but it makes it seem like it's this big, massive city within its own.
It sounds better than Broadway adjacent.
Yeah, it does, and that's what. But then that kind of plays into how everything's so close and compact because it's not that big of an area, right?
Sure.
And New York itself is not that big of an area. But if I say,
but they have tons of hallways and abandoned warehouses.
maybe that's why all the
You
fights are
fools.
close and packed.
That's where the Daredevil thrives. Every hallway.
Yeah, they have the compacted fight spaces because New York rents are crazy. So you've really got to make a lot out of a
That's
small.
a very good point. Very good point.
So in this episode, we see a lot going on with all the characters, I think, except Fisk. I was waiting for him to show up, but it didn't happen. So
Yeah.
Foggy seems to have gotten a cool new job with the evil lawyer from
With the Jessica Jones as attorney.
Yeah, that's a nice little twist. I like that.
Let's see. Karen is now a journalist with no writing experience.
Easily.
And a fluff piece journalist too.
Immediately gets to write like first-person essays.
We did this whole investigative thing, all this President's Men spotlight thing about the Punisher and everything. And I was
somebody else wrote
what
that.
makes a hero? What are you, the narrator from Hellboy?
What's running on Christmas Day? No one's going to read it anyway.
She does have no experience, so there you
Yeah.
go.
Well, in the beginning of season 3, she's fired because they realized she couldn't write.
Or she's on the obituary desk, and having to work her way up.
Yeah.
But
And then we see the conclusion. It felt more like the conclusion to the Hand storyline than the conclusion to the Daredevil storyline as a whole for this whole season.
I mean, I in the last review, I was kind of like trying to stick up for it a little bit with all the different pieces moving. But I think the finale, I don't think it was well done. I don't think it was as well done as I thought it.
I think it sucked.
Yeah, I didn't want to say completely because again, it's still good in comparison to some of the other shows I'm watching. But
it doesn't ruin anything. Like it doesn't mean like I don't want to see more Daredevil because
Yeah.
I do. But basically, it feels like the season finale of this particular season feels like, well, where did we come to? What did we get to? Elektra dies kind of not as dramatically as she did in the books. And we know she's coming back immediately, so that holds no weight whatsoever.
Yeah. Frank Castle red herrings at the last
Frank
minute
Castle,
for no good reason.
his story ended the last episode, and he just shows up to like sort of Deus Ex Machina as a
exactly
bad
my
guy.
point.
Yeah,
Why-
and then everyone just gets new jobs. And Daredevil's whole thing was, well, she taught me it's okay to be Daredevil. You knew that at the beginning of the season. What was the season about?
Isn't he kind of back and forth though? Because we were talking ourselves about who is the Daredevil, or who's cleaning up Hell's Kitchen? Is it Matt or is it the Daredevil? Who is he? Which one's the mask? Which one's the real guy? At times he did feel kind of lost in this series, but I did like that he came to a conclusion at the end. I think I'm the only one who likes Elektra, so I got a little
I was fine with her.
I got a little
thought she was.
teary-eyed at they're like, we understand each other. I would throw it all away for you.
I think you could have done an Elektra season, and I think you could have done a Punisher season, and I think trying to do both at the same time is where this show ran into problems.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like they integrated them very well. They
didn't come together
They
at all.
felt like these sort of two parallel streams, and I don't know if the show did as much justice to either one of them as they might have had they focused on one and then the other.
Yeah, I feel like exactly that point. I feel like they spent a lot of the season building their story arc, and I feel like when it came to Frank Castle at the end, they kind of forgot, we've got a season finale, we need to fit him in, we'll just have him help Daredevil and shoot. And I didn't see any of his motives at that point. Like, I don't know why he appeared at that point. I mean, there may be a reason there as to why, but I feel like they tried to fit so much in and they rushed, and then they realized that they had one episode left to try and clean up Nobu's act and try and clean up that part of it. And I felt it was a little rushed at that point because, and I actually even got, I can't believe I'm saying this, a little tired of the fight scenes because there was so many times that he'd faced off against a hand.
And there's not a lot of variety after a while. I mean, again, say what you will. Yeah, there's a lot of hallways out there. But yeah, we need to have this mixed up a bit. I remember when Daredevil first fought Nobu in the first season, it was this huge damn ninja fight. Like, it was amazing. We hadn't seen anything like it before. Yeah. And now it's like he's going to fight Nobu again. And Nobu is a boring villain.
Yeah, I think so.
He's not an interesting character. He's just this guy Daredevil can't defeat very easily.
And again, he couldn't defeat him. Like, that was the only interesting thing, is that he hasn't yet beaten Nobu on his own. Like, again, Electra saved him from getting killed, and I think that was an interesting story out to it, and the fact that Stick appeared as a badass and
to finish him off.
But it could show that Daredevil maybe has still got a long way to go because he couldn't defeat him on his own. But again, I thought it was a little
I'm with you on the fight sequence, especially in this finale. It was kind of like, usually for the finale, you should save something to be exciting and new and different, and it just felt like almost the greatest hits of all the other fight scenes we'd seen the entire season.
And that happened last season, too. The big fight, finally Daredevil and Kingpin are going to fight.
Yes.
And it was just them kind of punching each other in an alley, and it had this kind of, kids on the street kind of tussle element to it that made it feel very, I don't know, somewhat more plausible, I guess, but it wasn't very big. It didn't build up to a huge moment. No. I feel like what this built up to more than anything else, if there was a scene in this episode that it built up to, was that moment just before the big fight with Daredevil and Elektra, that calm before the storm.
That was on the roof?
Where he makes a choice, and he actually just says, you know what, I don't even care about that lady who works at a newspaper now. I want to be with you, Elektra. Let's live on the lam forever. That will never get old. I never saw the Bourne Supremacy.
I would have liked that to be the final scene before.
I don't think he belongs with Karen. I don't think he belongs with Elektra either, but I did like that profession of love. And you don't necessarily have to end up with someone to love them. And
like, you're wrong for me, but I can't shake you.
And hurt you, and let it, what did Frank say in like 380? Like, a love that's worth hurt, or...
Oh, right, to have that.
To have her hurt you, like, that makes you feel alive.
That's the thing that you live for,
But that's a really great excuse for abusive relationships. Like, abusive relationships are great.
But when
Thanks,
Frank said it, it sounded nice.
Yeah.
Yes, Frank, that wonderful romantic.
So do we buy then that well, okay, I guess with Elektra gone, then, our runner-up Karen Page is now the reigning Mrs. Matt Murdock, and he's then he comes out to her as Daredevil? Well, I would have liked a post-credit stinger scene where she calls her boss of the Bullet and be like,
guess what?
Hold page one for me.
Yeah.
Well, I think it might attract
Don't fire me.
My writer's block is gone.
I think that kind of disconnect that Karen and Matt had as a character in their relationship might bring them closer together, because you can tell, like, she's drawn to that emotional conflict between Frank Castle, right? That she had that soft side to her. So basically Daredevil coming out to her at the end and Matt telling her who he was may draw her closer to him, and she can maybe see the side in which he was so disconnected from her that he didn't want to tell her to put her in jeopardy. But I mean, by that point, who cares? Because Karen was drawn into every single conflict that we'd seen. Far too many for my...
Refresh my memory. How many of us have read like the old Frank Miller comics?
Not me.
No?
I read Born Again.
Okay, we know that's where this is going, right? Now that Karen knows Matt Murdock's secret identity and the Kingpin has vowed he's going to destroy Matt Murdock personally, that's the third season, is the Kingpin systematically destroying Matt Murdock. And then at some point he's going to have to find out that he's Daredevil, and that's going to completely change the dynamic, because that's the only place that this is logically going, unless we really want to spend more time with the Hand. But that really feels more like an Iron Fist thing now.
True. I don't know, but they could stretch it out, because obviously you got to make Karen a drug addict first. So
you don't have to. It's
no,
fine.
I guess, but that could be a season 4.
We keep talking about her illicit past, and we only got like a little tiny tease of it.
Oh,
we saw like there was the
touching
file.
with her brother a little bit.
A little bit,
Right.
but we don't know what's going on. Maybe her brother died because she was on drugs. I mean, she's implied that she's had addiction problems before. We still don't know exactly where she's coming from. They could just say that that's like a tragic backstory and not actually sully her the way Frank Miller insisted.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
There was one point I wanted to touch on at the end that I felt happened, but might have been a little overlooked, is that did Daredevil finally cross that line and was willing to kill But,
Willing to.
Did
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Did he throw that guy off
well,
the roof?
for all I imagine is Nobu. He imagined that Nobu was dead. I don't think he can imagine that he's obviously immortal. come
Maybe
back
if you're
to life again.
reincarnated, it doesn't count.
Yeah, that's what I was
You had
thinking
your
though. But
one.
it's still, it seems that he pushed like. That's
I
where
guess
I
if you're
like the
already
storyline.
dead, I mean, are you technically
No, but
killing?
he's still
He's
throwing
only
him off the roof with
mostly
little
dead.
remorse. But again, I want to go back to what you mentioned is what I think was the overwhelming flaw. You mentioned it right there. The scene with William Fisk at the end of season 1. What powered that scene?
Wilson Fisk.
Wilson Fisk, sorry. What powered that scene more than anything else was the hatred that came from the antagonist. He hated Daredevil and was willing to put everything on the line for it. I didn't sense that from the Hand. I didn't sense that there was that overwhelming hatred. I understood that they wanted to obviously get Electra on board with them and she's the Black Sky and all this and that. But it wasn't enough for me to make that scene like on the edge of my seat. Oh, I wonder what's going to happen here. It just felt like they were there as a purpose to try and prove that the two sides between the Punisher and Daredevil, who was willing to go the distance for what they believed in. And I felt like they did a good job of making that story up, but then at the end just rushed it.
You can't do a story like this. I know everyone thinks that superhero stories are often about sort of the incident and facade and action, but there has to be an emotional connection. If there isn't, you might enjoy watching it, but you're not going to remember it.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately the goal of these, is to make a huge impression. And it goes from everything from the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie to the first season of Daredevil. There's actually like an emotional thing. We have to stop this bad guy for reasons that matter to the characters and therefore they matter to the audience. Here, the Hand is an idea.
Yes.
And it's not a very well described idea. Like we don't even really know 100% what they're about.
And we don't know what their agenda ultimately is
I
going to
would
be
really
once
love
they get
to
Electra.
know
Yeah.
How they know Electra is the Black Sky, because the Black Sky in the first season played way differently.
Was a little kid.
Yeah.
Are there more than one Black Sky?
Yes,
Can
there
we
is
just
more than one. That's all I've understood.
then we don't? Yeah, that's the thing.
And if
It's
there is
2
more than one,
seasons
then
in.
why bother with this? Why go after the most difficult one to get?
Yeah.
Oh, super warrior whose boyfriend is also like a super badass warrior. Maybe there's another kid. Let's go find another kid instead.
Spending
You
this
know?
much time with vague setups for something that is mystically oriented and ultimately probably won't matter very much really has me thinking of Lost and not the best parts of Lost.
Yeah.
Well, a friend of mine does a blog called "What Does the Protagonist Want?" And my question is always, what does the Hand want? Like, once they get the Black Sky, then what?
Weren't they just gonna like activate it and see what happens?
That's not much of a plan.
That's what Stick said.
Do you remember in Spectre how like there was that whole thing about how they're going to try to get all that stuff, all that information from the government? Like that's what they had to get them to stop doing. Then what? What were they going to do with it? We never knew. There was no real reason to care about that. It's just dangling plot. Just here, we hope you like some plot. Like, no, I want to care about what's going on.
And you raise a good point though. The difference between season 1, where you have Fisk, who genuinely loathes Daredevil and Matt Murdock and is vowing to destroy them, and then the Hand, who only sees Daredevil as this sort of pesky thing that's in the way of getting to Electra, that's a lot less compelling dramatically.
Yeah, I think that what I defended it in the last review is that I felt like you had to have another like antagonist, right, to prove both sides of both the Punisher's methods and Daredevil's methods. So I felt like there's a way that you could have perhaps made the Mob or the Irish. They're the main antagonists in this storyline, right? So how is the Punisher going to deal with it compared to how Matt's going to deal with it? Because I feel like you need that obviously to justify each alternative method. But
That's
rather
totally
than develop that storyline, they just moved. They kind of like they resolved it and then they moved over to the Hand. And then when Frank came out of nowhere to help Matt, I was thinking, why?
How did he even know he was there? That's a question. Like, but you're right. That's how this thematically this works. The Punisher really should be the antagonist of this season because he's the one who represents the most.
Yeah.
He's the one who is the mirror image of Matt Murdock in this season.
Yeah.
And then you introduce another element so that once they're actually on speaking term, Daredevil and the Punisher, they have something to unite against. But then they overdeveloped that. They overshot that.
Yeah.
The Hand is too important, too interesting, too big, too mystical to not become an enormous distraction.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it feels like it's about the Hand, but always it was about the Punisher. But then the Hand got so big that they never got around to making the Punisher really relevant again after he escaped from prison.
Yeah.
Or you could even like tie it in with where the Hand was really what was behind all of last season 7
That's
even
what I
more
was thinking.
than Kingpin was. And then fine, then nail them more as the people who are ruining Hell's Kitchen, which gives Frank Castle a reason to go after them.
Yeah.
But they didn't connect those dots. And so once Frank has taken care of the Irish and the bikers and the cartel, then the Hand just feels like this whole other plot. Again, the Electra stream over here and the Frank Castle stream over here, and they just don't. There's never a tributary or whatever. I don't know what my word here is.
You don't even realize, but season 1, we had a bunch of moving pieces. We had the Russians who were taken care of, and then we had Nobu was involved, and then we had Wilson Fisk. But Wilson Fisk's motives were directly intertwined with those groups, and he had to remove them in order to pursue what he imagined was fixing the city. So therefore, it tied all them together, and it made it an easy story arc. Where, as I know, like the main issue of this season was how do you better what you've done last season? Because last season was phenomenal. How do you better that? So
it is kind of unfair.
They had a problem to do that. But one thing that I definitely give them credit for is they've made me on the edge of my seat for the Punisher's own series, which I'm sure is going to happen because the way they've set up his story.
Did they greenlight that yet?
They've got to. Surely
How do they
they've got
not?
to.
Like, it'd be weird if they didn't.
I thought they did, but
I'm not positive, but I would be stunned if they didn't.
They got to do a mini series or a movie or something. They got to do it. He's too good.
Too good.
Like, it'd be weird if he. Like, I understand why we don't have a Hawkeye movie because Jeremy Renner's good, but he's not that good. Like, we need a Punisher movie.
Jeremy
or like
Renner actually wants a Netflix series, so
I would actually be fine with that if
Okay.
you followed like the Mad Fraction series. That'd be really cool.
Or the West Coast Avengers. Now, I know it sounds like we're
We're
dumb.
old school. We're super
Sorry.
old school. We want a Moon Knight so
There you
bad.
go. I know it sounds like we're dumping on this. This was still, I think, a
There are
really
major plot
strong
holes,
season
but
in a lot of
strong.
ways. There were a lot of exciting sequences. Bernthal was great. I liked Electra a lot. I think that I liked Deborah Ann Cox as Deborah Ann Walls as
We can't get her name right.
she married Charlie Cox, and that's her.
yeah.
name.
Sorry, I'm getting
No,
it all
that didn't happen.
confused.
That
Oh, I was about to say.
I thought she was terrific, and I think and she's really made that character more interesting this season. So there's a lot that I like. I'm very excited about the prospect of there being a Daredevil season 3, which I imagine there will be. I will totally be watching it, but on the standards of how great season 1 was,
That's what I'm holding
this
up
one
to.
I think was
I think
could have
they're
used
trying to
some.
build up to Defenders.
Yes,
As
they're
opposed
trying to build
Daredevil
a.
season 3.
It's like they're using this one to kind of build up the universe a bit more, and I think they kind of jumped the gun on it.
Yeah.
Because they do still have Luke Cage and Iron Fist before they even get there, and another season, Jessica Jones probably, and probably another Daredevil at this rate.
And
like
a
they're-
Punisher.
They have plenty of time, basically, and it feels like they really kind of rushed it. And that's the thing. I feel like this season ultimately is worthy of criticism, but it is good. And the thing that I think is particularly worth noting is that it didn't jump the shark. It never did anything that was like so bad we can't go back.
Sure.
It's just it was just a little unfocused this season, and then next season they can totally bring it back and make it work again.
Well, but in doing that, that's why I wanted to have this last kind of question is what would you like to see happen? Because there's rumors going around that Bullseye might be introduced next season.
Right.
I would hope that I think they've had enough of a storyline to at least I mean there's no way that they can't keep the Punisher within the next season of Daredevil, even if he has his own spin-off show. But I would like to see some sort of, I would say, antagonist coming from Wilson Fisk, obviously to try and get him back into it. How is he going to work systematically from inside prison? Because it seems like he's got such a strong threshold in there.
Yeah.
How does he work, and how does the Punisher view Wilson Fisk now that he's out of prison because of Fisk? But how does that?
Yeah.
They
How
were
does he
building
work
up
in
to
cohesion
that.
with
Like
him?
the next time we meet, that
Yeah,
conversation.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
interested to see. And if they focus on that, of course they're going to have other people to keep it relevant, and you can't continue that for 13 episodes. But what do you think? What would you like to say?
I'm sorry, having read Born Again, that whole season is Born Again. You just described Born Again, but it has the Punisher in it.
Yeah.
That's basically what you just did. That's totally it's what they got to do. It'd be weird if they didn't.
I grant you, it's lying there waiting to be done. So it seems
Well,
like
so that's a
that-
comic
what
that's already been written?
Basically, yeah.
Nice.
The setup was a little different,
See,
but basically, yeah.
The classes you're teaching me are working. I'm able to put this. I'm passing the test.
You're welcome.
You
Thank
have plenty of time
Thank
to
you,
read up in
Internet.
the meantime.
There's a lot of other characters, but that's the thing is, I feel like there's a lot of other characters I kind of want them to see them introduced. Like, for example, wouldn't it be really cool if we got Echo? Like in another season,
I don't know who that is, but
Echo was basically Daredevil, but she's deaf.
Oh.
Like that's basically it.
Interesting.
She was cool. Then she became Ronin for a while, and then Hawkeye became Ronin
and then the
because
two of them
Hawkeye
can team
died.
up with Black Bolt. And then
Exactly, it's a thing. It's a thing. There's other characters. They teased Gladiator a couple of times because when he was like showing off, hey, I got all this stuff, and look, I got these big circular discs I can use to fight people with. Oh, Gladiator, we'll never get to you. Like it's only a matter of time. I
There
don't
were
know.
some literal holes I had a problem with.
Yeah.
What's up with that hole the hand made? Do you guys know?
Oh,
I guess that big coffin thing he
Oh,
was
I
in
was
there?
No, the
listen-
giant hole.
the
that's
giant hole that
60
was in the
stories
ground.
down.
Oh, right. Yeah. Did that ever get explained?
I thought the coffin was supposed to be in there.
I might have
We
been.
thought it was somewhere else. Didn't we have this conversation?
I feel like we had this conversation,
Oh.
but we never resolved it to everyone's satisfaction. And I blame the show for that.
I think that's one of the things. Is there was a lot of
What's up
unanswered.
with that hole?
That's a lot of hole for one coffin.
Yeah, there's a lot of good things.
That's
but-
why they were taking out all of the dirt in those train cars. It was like Tim Robbins' pants legs in Shawshank Redemption, but it was a train. You know, we had to sort of sneak it out of town as best as we can.
Yeah.
And then there was also, I don't think the Grotto storyline really went anywhere.
Grotto storyline?
They were protecting Grotto, and then the
Oh,
defending
yeah.
Oh,
Punisher.
Grotto. Oh,
yeah.
That kind of took him
It
back.
kind of
Like,
didn't go anywhere.
well, Grotto
either.
died, and
Yeah,
I guess
he
they
died.
just let it slide
I
after
was like,
that.
a lot of these storylines got wrapped up by shooting everyone,
Shooting,
like
that's
the
the
DA.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
it was
that's
like
kinda wrapped
an
up.
emotional conclusion or
Yeah.
some lesson learned.
Yeah.
It was yeah, that gets us kind of my point is they started off so strong. Like the first 4 episodes or so are really a great start to a Daredevil season. And then basically once they got this, and then even once they said we're gonna take the Punisher case, I'm like, ooh, that's something we haven't seen before. We've done
was
like
great.
3 Punisher
I still
movies.
don't understand
We've never
why
done
they
that.
did that.
Why did they do the Punisher case?
Yeah.
I think it was to create that connection between Karen. Oh, it was to at least form that connection between Karen and the Punisher.
But I also think that when you put Frank Castle on trial and you have Matt Murdock defend him, this is something that they've done in the comics before. Is that Daredevil would like take down a villain, but then that villain would actually need a legal defense.
Oh, so he
then-
would defend him?
Yeah, he defended like Mr. Hyde in that way. You know, like there was stuff to be done there. I think there's a lot of interesting material to be done there, and the idea of having Daredevil take the Punisher down because he is morally opposed to him, but then having to support the Punisher because he does believe in the law, would actually have been a really fantastic way to challenge his character. And then Elektra comes in, and Matt Murdock is completely uninvolved in the
I
case.
was going to say, he barely defends the Punisher.
Yeah,
It was Foggy does everything.
It becomes
That's-
a waste of time, and it's such a
just
wasted
makes Foggy
opportunity.
hate
When you're under a woman's wrath, yeah, that's what happens.
That's
You
a new
just
kind of
focus on it.
ambulance chasing. I don't
But-
know what the term would be there.
I think a
but-
good testament for how well they developed the Punisher is for me, I think if they even just removed some of the other things from it, it could have been a very good series premiere for the Punisher on its own.
Sure.
This whole season.
Backdoor
because-
pilot,
Yeah,
yeah.
just like a backdoor pilot for it, because it developed his story enough to the point where I was more involved in that than what Matt Murdock was doing elsewhere.
Well, the Punisher movies don't usually work because all of the other Punisher movies have taken place in a world where there are no superheroes.
Yeah.
So there's nothing differentiating it from Death Wish.
Yeah.
Like nothing at all. He just happens to have a skull on his shirt. Like
Yeah.
that's it. So, but the other thing that made them kind of not really resonate, even the better ones, is that they ended up just being all about shooting and action and simplified vengeance. Here, it's a TV show. We have enough space to actually get to know him and get inside his head, and it becomes a complex character as opposed to kind of a crap one, which he is in most of even the movies people like. He's not a great character in him. He's just a big force.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Dolph
And-
Lundgren force.
I liked the Dolph Lundgren.
I know you
one.
did, but it's a
And defenders of Batman v Superman, bless their hearts, you know, their whole take is like, oh, the Marvel movies, they're so quippy and brightly colored, blah, blah, blah. And I feel like these shows rather hit the sweet spot where they are
Right.
kind of noirish and they're very street level and not, you know, like nobody's in a penthouse.
This would be a great tone for a Batman show.
Yeah, like
you
they
should-
really, they get the difference right. And I'm down for more Night Nurse, please.
Yeah, what you should do with
Well-
that, to those people,
Yes.
Alonso, is you should just take the part where the Punisher goes on his in-prison rampage and show them that nice brightly coloured scene, because that
There you
was
go.
one of the most graphic scenes. That
I
was my
have some
favourite scene in the
hallways
episode.
to show you.
Yeah. That and the
Very
dino scene.
convenient. Yeah, well, you're going to get your wish for more Night Nurse because she skipped town and she's heading to Luke Cage film?
Maybe.
I don't know, isn't he in Hell's Kitchen?
I don't know where
I
he
thought he was
went.
in Hell's Kitchen. He's
I thought
doing
he
stuff.
left.
He's
Yeah.
chilling. He's going to be in places
Well,
for
she's going
things.
to go there for sure.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Urgent care
out.
night nurse.
There you go.
So yay.
Yay.
Overall, marks out of 10.
If we have to do it out of 10.
Oh, let's do it.
the whole season?
The whole season.
This whole season. Okay, the first season I would give like a 9.5.
Yeah, I agree.
This season I'd give probably like, I think if I binged it, I'd give it slightly higher. But because I stretch it out and I got to think about it more, I'm going to give it a 7.
No, I'm joking.
Yeah.
No, I was actually going to say solid 7, which
Yeah.
is not
Respectable, but
Yeah,
not great.
exactly. Like it lands, it does most of what it sets out to do, but it's not as dynamic as the first season.
A
Yeah.
minus.
A minus, or what, like an
Hey!
8.5? I'm going to go with an.
On a scale of 1 star to 100, how many thumbs up do you give?
How many John Bernthal's will I give it? I'll give it. I mean, I would give it an 8 just because of John Bernthal. I mean, I'm just a huge fan of him.
John
An 8.
Bernthal's, that's pretty sweet.
8 John Bernthals. Imagine that.
All
You're
right.
pitching it. aren't
I'm
you?
imagining it. It's pretty great.
It is not on the
doing a
tomato
lot for
meter
me.
because it's not a movie, but
No, they do TV.
Oh, they did?
actually.
They do
Yes,
TV now, yeah.
But I don't. I,
I,
did not,
by
wish we
episode,
had
though. I
it
don't think
then.
they do
I know. We should have looked it up. So I didn't know we were going to do ratings. Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks,
well.
Francis, for throwing us for a
You're
loop.
Francis, damn it.
Sorry,
Ruin
guys.
everything.
Sorry,
I guess
guys.
we'll be
It's my
back
purple
come
tie.
September for Luke Cage.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Damn right. There, and between then, Preacher will be on in May. I'm sure some of us are coming
Oh
back.
yeah, our
Oh,
space.
totally.
That'll
Yeah,
be fun.
that'll be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to
Yeah.
that. So, everybody, thank you for watching.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hope you weren't punished and you were electrified.
Whoa.
One last time, Bibbs. Come back.
No.
Oh.
Turn the page.
Oh. He's done it. Drop the mic.
Devil
No,
may
don't
care
put it.
attitude.
You're welcome.